You look nice today. Hi, Dale.
How are you? Good.
How are you?
Gotta get going.
You face, my face, whatever face it is. I can't get out of my face. I don't want to see it on my face.
Remember the question that you had on there?
All the time.
Yeah, I put a lot. And I put a lot
But what do you forget?
I'm right always right here where I'm not good.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to, I might not be able to.
We'll wait a few minutes more. See if anybody wants to put it up. So, anybody have any questions? Other than you'd like to start over again? Do I have any questions? Well, something previously that we've done.
Bill,
Yes.
I know you have told us, but I can't remember. What happens if you don't pass the class exam? How long do you have to wait to resit it?
30 days. So I have a suggestion.
Don't fail. Exactly, but I just like to know what the options are.
You gotta kid me that you're worried about failing the class exam. When I've done everything other than tell you the answers. In case you haven't figured it out, that material that hovers around the star is gonna be on the class test.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I couldn't push it much farther to keep my license. But she wanted me to just give me a sheet of paper with all the answers, A, B, C, D.
I'm looking for spots to rent. Can I call here?
Yeah.
And should I ask for?
Andy Sewell.
And what is the number?
Here? 705-1040, I think.
I'm interested with you.
I'm on it.
But she was a RN, she was a RN, and she got cancer, and she got cancer, she had like a student.
Okay, let's get started again. I want to start with an overview of the three types of brokerage relationships that you're allowed to operate under in the state of Florida. I would like volunteers to give me a brief explanation of what each one of them means. We'll start with single agency. Would anybody like to volunteer to tell me how you would explain single agency to a buyer or a seller? Okay.
A single agent is either for the buyer or the seller, not both.
Okay. And is our relationship the same as everybody else's?
I don't understand the question.
Transaction broker or non-broker?
No, it's a different relationship. Each one has its own unique relationship.
What term would we think of when we think of single agency? Fiduciary. That's the word we're looking for.
What is
That's
it?
fiduciary. Fiduciary, what does that word mean?
Position of
It represents trust and confidence. In other words, everything you do is for the other person.
Loyalty.
All right, let's try transaction broker. Anybody want to volunteer that one?
A transaction broker can represent either the seller or the buyer or both.
Okay. So you're telling me that a transaction broker doesn't represent the transaction, he or she represents the people in the transaction?
No, it represents the transaction.
facility.
What? Say it again, I didn't hear you.
I would believe it represents the transaction.
Isn't
Didn't
he
she
just a
just tell me with the first
facilitator?
part of what she said? that you represent either the buyer or the seller or both in the same transaction?
Both in some production.
You
I
don't,
do believe so.
Yes.
you don't represent either, you're in the middle, you're
Facilitating.
facilitating both sides. You have no prejudice with either or, no fiduciary with either or.
So you're telling me that as a transaction broker, I don't represent either party?
You represent each party, but you don't have a fiduciary with either
Okay.
one.
See, if you tell me, again, I warned you before, happens again, serious doo-doo. Star Wars.
Okay.
Never describe a transaction broker as someone who represents the transaction. That's called a non-representation. Because if I don't represent anybody and I'm the only, but I'm there helping out, I am working for the transaction, not for the parties to it. What brokerage relationship did transaction broker take the place of?
Single.
Can't be single when I can represent both.
The broker.
Dual. Thank you. It took the place of dual agency. Because we know that dual agency means you have a fiduciary with both sides. And the powers that be in Florida decided that
It's illegal.
that that's not gonna work. Their fear is that in some way you'll violate your fiduciary duties to a party very easily. So, transaction broker basically puts you somewhere between single agency and non-representation. But closer to single agency than non-representation, because you do represent them, but not in a fiduciary capacity. Tonight, we didn't look at the duties and responsibilities of a single agent. So we only got half the story, so to speak. Let's quickly review
Do you remember Dale? Remember your video?
yes, that is it. All right. For whatever reason, there's more work tonight. Let's go over to page 63. Let's take a look at looking at the first three. Account for all funds, disclose material facts, and deal honestly and fairly. Those three, would they be applicable to all three brokerage relationships?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't care what relationship you have with them, you gotta handle their money properly. You've gotta disclose material facts. Doesn't matter how you're representing them or not representing them. And you have to deal honestly and fairly. So those three, for sure, would show up in any brokerage relationship. Because remember, this is a relationship between the broker and the public. So even when you're dealing, if you're never dealing, you may not be representing them, but you're still not dealing at arm's length. Because you still have responsibility to them as a non-brokerage relationship. You still have responsibility. It's just not as intense as the other. Do you think that as a single agent, looking at number 4 at the bottom of page 63, do you think that a single agent would also have to use skilled care and diligence?
Absolutely.
To find it interesting reading through there, what's included in that. And it's even more detailed. It says there, the broker, for example, must keep him informed of current zoning and other developments that may affect the value of the property. Not at this seminar I went to this summer, but 2 summers ago, I went to the seminar for renewing my license. It's a 1-day seminar that we have to go to. And there's always been a responsibility of an agent to discover and disclose. And this is kind of where this was going, and they kind of lightened up on this one for a little bit. What does discover, the responsibility of discovery, what does that mean from a perspective of an agent?
Disclosing issues maybe with the home?
No, I didn't ask you about disclosure, I asked you about discovery.
Be
There's a
aware,
difference.
be
Huh?
aware of,
Be aware, okay, ladies?
Maybe you would discover that, just found out yesterday that they're gonna put a road where there wasn't a road, where they're gonna be buying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, what if that was a rumor? You haven't seen a news clip or
a fact.
a letter coming to your house?
So it would be my job to call
To find
city,
out.
call City Hall and find out, is there actually a road going there? Because it came to mind, and it would be not honest if I didn't tell the prospective buyer.
Right, that's discovery. What's disclosure?
Then it's disclosure, is just to put it in writing, and whatever is factual.
Doesn't even have to be in writing, the fact that you what?
Yeah.
That you tell the public.
Yeah, the seller has termites, so you tell them.
You'll see every once in a while, Ben will put out an email about an article that has relevance to what we do. A lot of times, he didn't find that. One of the other associates sent it to him. And in reviewing it, he felt that it was something important. But see, this is not the relationship we're talking about, Ben and us. It's all of us and the public. That's the relationship we're talking about. If they can show that you are aware of something that was a material fact, then you can be held liable for not disclosing. However, they've lightened up on feeling that you have the need to discover. And part of many things today that we are responsible for. That having to research everything that comes across. Plus, in today's world, it's a whole lot easier to find out stuff. It's a whole lot easier to verify stuff. You Google it. I mean, if you back up, 40 years when I started, you didn't have that. You had to do it on foot. All we had was phones. And they weren't selling. So I think they've lightened up on the discovery part simply because of the fact that there's so much information being pumped out about just about real estate. That the consumers are a whole lot more knowledgeable today than they were in the past. But when you realize that you're being asked questions about a specific topic and you've been asked that question 3 or 4 times, it probably tells me I should spend some time doing what? Research. Luckily here you got people that you can turn to see if they have any knowledge of it or a source. All right. Then what's a no brokerage relationship? What's the function of the agent in that relationship?
Represent both, but with limit functions.
Nope, that's transaction.
Oh,
Question was, we're talking about non-brokerage relationship. How would you describe that relationship?
Someone who represents the transaction rather than buyers or sellers.
Right. They're there for the function of
Closing the deal.
facilitating the transaction, as you said.
What's that about owners?
Now, how about this question? We haven't even done this yet, but let's see if we can answer it. Yeah, we did do it. We did it the other night. We have a company with 600 agents. One of the agents in that company takes a listing. The company function is a single agent. An agent from another office with the same company has a buyer. Can they remain single agents and complete that transaction?
No, because they have the same broker.
But different agents.
Same broker.
Do you know that even though we have all these different companies, the state looks at us as one company? Why? Because we're one broker. So our structure is very, as I said to you before, is very different. I mean, you go to Caldwell Banker, they got offices all over the place, but they're branch offices, except for a few. They're all franchises.
So because of that, does that mean that one Caldwell banker in a different office can represent?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's even more obvious there, because they both work for the same company. We can have a situation where a sire agent was showing a buyer a property in Kings Point. Well, that's 2 different companies. Because Kings Point is one office, actually a company, 2 offices, but it's a company. And then Signature National Real Estate is the general real estate arm of the company.
Sorry.
So that means that we're still dealing with one. Obviously, in today's world, when you've got a company with a lot of agents, going single agency is a problem. Because you're gonna be constantly having to transition to transaction broker, is what it's called. You'll see it when we get to it a little later.
Are there any advantages that someone would want to remain single agent?
It's a good listing tool. After we do single agency, I'm going to illustrate basically what you're asking. So, all right. let's take a look at
Can
simulation.
I, a quick question? In the book, it says seven duties of a transaction broker, but isn't that across the board for an agent, period?
No,
Okay.
the first four are, actually, the first three are. But due diligence doesn't apply to the non-brokerage relationship. The single agency and transaction broker would. If someone refers to me as their agent, what does that imply?
You're representing the real estate person
You're representing them how?
in the name of the broker.
What brokerage relationship?
It's a fiduciary.
At first, at that point in time, it's a fiduciary. It's a single one at that point.
So you're telling me that if they refer to me as their agent, they are, what they're hearing, or what someone else, a third party is hearing, is that there's a fiduciary relationship there.
Yes.
That's why you don't refer to your buyers and sellers as agents or clients, or as clients, you refer to them as customers. Because client ties to principal, which ties to agency, which ties to fiduciary. Those are all terms that are interrelated. Because fiduciary is a relationship of trust and confidence. On page 65, put a bracket around that page. Okay. And if you'll notice in the first paragraph under single agency on 65, the middle of line 6, it says, in a single agent relationship, the seller or the buyer is the principal, and the real estate broker is the agent. You'll notice in the second paragraph, as an agent, you're considered a sub-agent of the broker. Even if the broker is functioning as a transaction broker with the public, you still have a fiduciary with the broker. You're still under a sub-agent category.
In that case, a person who is a broker associate would still be considered a sales associate because the broker still has that fiduciary.
The easiest way to remember it is that when you hear the term broker associate, anytime you hear the word associate as a part of the name, you know that they have the same responsibilities and duties and rights of a sales associate. So a broker has to make a decision. Do I want off my own place and do my own thing? That's when I place my license active, but that means I have to have an office. And in chapter 5, we'll talk about what is an office. And that's your home can be your office. That's your office. Now, no, you know what, I'm gonna have myself, let me back up here. I'm looking for.
Dale, in the meantime, can I ask you a question?
That must
If your broker works in a transactional basis, transaction basis, and a customer comes and asks you to be simulated, I mean, one of the sales associates gets a person that is related or friend or whatever, and he asks you to represent them on the simulated. How do you do it?
No.
You don't do it?
No.
So what do you tell them in order to?
Why would they want a single agent?
Because they ask you, I know you, I want you to represent me.
Well, that's fine, that's exactly what I'll do. Remember, as a transaction broker, I just represent them. I just don't have a fiduciary relationship. They don't need a fiduciary relationship with me. They need a business relationship with me. Because when I show you the requirements and responsibilities of a single agent, I think you'll understand. All right, I can't find what I'm looking for. Shoot myself. Let's take a look. On page 65, starting with line 17. Let's highlight lines 17 and 18. All right, the first one is account for all funds. That's the same. And what I want to do is I want you to put a star beside, not a star. Let's do this. Let's highlight each number where it says 1, accounts for funds, and then disclose all known facts. You got 5 of those down the page. Just want to highlight the heading. Now, as we go through this list, when we get to one that's the same as what would be a transaction broker, I want you to put a little arrow. That'll be, I don't want to do a star because that would make you think it's on the test. The first one is account for all funds. Is that one that's the same as transaction broker?
The same.
Okay. The second is disclose all facts that will materially affect the value of the property.
Same.
Now, does that statement apply to all real estate properties?
Not commercial, just.
Residential.
Not business,
Not business or commercial.
not business.
Does it say residential? I think probably you should highlight that word residential because it's the second time you got it wrong. And 3 should also, I think, have an arrow, because deal honestly and fairly.
That's a good question. Which is the definition legally for honestly and fairly?
Right here, line 40.
You have the definition? It's on Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Like the exact definition.
You'll see definitions for these terms. These terms are about outlined. It's a matter of an interpretation of a given situation. So it's not a simple black and white answer. It is when you, it is when you're looking at it from a definitional standpoint. But when you're dealing with it from a practical standpoint, from a, what did they do and how severe is it? You know, see, in all the situations where that you might be prosecuted, it's something called mitigating effects. Things that are unusual about that situation that maybe made it worse or made it better, depending on the circumstances. Now, the next one's called confidentiality. Do we need to start us out of that one?
Do we need a what, a start?
I don't mean to start, an arrow beside that.
Yes.
No.
I asked you, do I need one beside the confidentiality?
Yes.
Do we find confidentiality in transaction broker?
Yes.
Limited.
Limit.
It doesn't say limited. The answer is no. What's the next one? Is that,
No.
Oh,
so there's 2 of the 4 characteristics that changes it from transaction broker to single agent. I haven't gotten to the other 2. On the top of page 66, number 6 is loyalty.
No.
And right here in the book, it gives examples of what loyalty would make reference to. The bullets under number 6. Obtaining the most favorable price and terms for the principal, acting on behalf of the principal, not acting for parties with adverse interest in the same transaction, meaning that you couldn't represent the buyer and the seller. And then, number 7, it says what? Number 8? I think that one's similar. And then number 9? When you say present all offers, what's that mean?
And anything that.
Does that include verbal offers?
Yes.
Does it include a contract, an actual contract with addendum?
Yes.
What about a phone call that an offer is on its way?
Yes.
But that's dependent on what the customer wanted to. After if you receive an offer and he's working on that, he has to receive more in the future on that, right?
Well, his question is, the customer got an offer and is considering that offer. and then other offers come along. Do I have an obligation?
The customer- the customer-
Yes.
Yes.
Unless the customer says specifically in the contract, no other, just the first one.
Okay. So, if I just ask a general question, if I had presented them an offer, and they were considering it, and another offer came along,
You have to disclose that.
would I need to disclose that?
Yes.
Yes.
When do I stop
When the
Whatever
customer
the-
says.
presenting offers?
When the closing is
Another
done,
thing is done, yeah.
when money has transferred.
Closing.
The law says, unless instructed otherwise by the seller, it's until you have a closing. Those are called backup contracts. Now, I agree with everybody's statement that it's ultimately the customer's decision. But I have to know what the rights are before I worry about which one I'm gonna choose. Meaning, if I don't have something on the listing agreement that says no verbal offers, that no offers after we have a contract, if I get a verbal contract, guess what? I have an obligation to present it to them.
Yes,
If I get a written offer with a deposit, I have an obligation. I
yes,
got a phone call saying that they're putting the offer together, it will be there within the hour. Still have an obligation to disclose that. See, when it comes to offers, I want my seller to be aware of all his or her options. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each one, because I want to help them decide which offer they're going to continue to negotiate. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's one, maybe it's two, maybe it's none of them. When they really looked at them, they didn't like anything they saw in any of them. So that means all three of them were rejected. But that's not my decision.
We can't influence them.
Yes, we will influence them by making sure they understand the consequences of doing it or not doing it.
plus if one, if it falls through, at closing it falls through, they have backup.
Right. Which,
Why do you have two disclosures, one in the 7 and the other one in the second? What is the difference between both?
we just did that. Let's review what really makes, I'll tell you what, we're gonna do it the easy way. There's a chart on 64. The four things that create fiduciary are confidentiality, obedience, loyalty, and full disclosure. Called cold. Illustration, because the two ones, in my mind, are loyalty and obedience. If I have to be loyal to my person,
Yeah, fiduciary.
then I can't be loyal to this one over here. Because I'm violating some fiduciary someplace. That was the thought of why they dumped dual agency. Because they had a way of doing it. Actually, transaction broker is a watered down form of dual agency.
Right.
Now, as a single agent, you're at a listing appointment, and you have convinced the seller to give you a listing, and you're wrapping things up and having them sign everything and putting, closing up your computer. And the seller says, but there's one thing I need you to understand. I do have one requirement. I promised my neighbors I would not sell this property to anyone that was Irish. Irish.
It's against the law, can't do it.
Yeah, you can do it.
Can't do it. It's against the law.
Now, I have a question. You just read obedience. Obedience means if your client tells you to do something, you get your little you know what up and do it.
Yeah, but you can't break the law for obedience.
You just have to explain them that you can do it.
You can't break the law.
What if they say they don't care? I don't want you to bring any Irish people by.
You can't do anything about
Can
it.
you ignore them?
Just tell them you can't do
That's
business.
not
You have
part
to
of
tell
business.
them.
Well, can you tell them that you can't do it?
Yeah.
And they say, I don't care, I still don't want any Irish people. Are you taking that listing?
No.
Because you have a duty of
Obedience.
obedience. As a transaction broker, you don't have a duty of obedience. So I can explain to him very nicely, that it's, actually, it's in the first paragraph of the listing, but make sure that he understands that by law, I have to show this property to anyone who is financially capable of purchasing it. So I can explain the rules to that seller and keep the listing. Probably wouldn't, not probably, I would. There's obedience. So anything, well, for example, seller's not happy that the property's not moving. And so they felt that the reason is that you priced it too low. So everybody thinks there's something wrong with it. Well, there probably is, that's why you did price it. And so he tells you to raise the price by $10,000. Which you know is gonna do what? Make a bad situation worse.
Work, yes.
Do you have to obey?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
You can advise.
You can advise, but you have to
Discuss
obey.
it.
Which part of I want the price range $10,000 you didn't understand?
Okay.
Can't do it.
As a single agent, I got one or two options. I either change it
Or me.
or I withdraw from the listing. Which you can't do without Ben's permission, because it's not your listing.
But the broker can do it itself. I mean, he can reject the list and say, I don't want you no more. I don't want
Right.
to sell the property no more.
Right,
The broker can do that?
yeah. Because remember who the listing really belongs to. Listing belongs to the broker, so if it belongs to the broker, guess what?
So would you tell your customer that I'm gonna have to go to my broker, you want it raised $10,000? I don't think it's.
I tell you what, I give you a little hint, you don't have to go anywhere. Seller, you signed a contract, give it with a price of $25,000 on it, and you gave me 6 months to find a buyer that will pay you that money. So sit down, shut up. Because as a transaction broker, I don't have a duty of obedience. But as a single agent, I do. So if I, as a single agent in that scenario, if I couldn't talk him out of it, I'm gonna have to raise the price by 10,000. I'm waiting for an objection.
So as a single agent, you do have to raise the price? If the
You have a
client-
duty of obedience, don't you?
Okay. But you have to go to the broker.
You still have to go.
We have to go to the broker because only the broker can terminate the listing.
Okay. So a transaction broker doesn't have to have loyalty?
No.
So that if your broker is the listing agent and the customer says, I want to increase it by $10,000, you don't have to do that
No. You sign the contract for agreement
for a certain price?
for a certain price,
As
and
a
terms, and time.
I have a question. What if the seller wants to buy it at a higher bid? Then what the?
Wants to do it?
What if the seller wants to buy it at a higher price than what the buyer, no, the buyer wants to buy it at a higher price than what the seller is selling it for?
Okay.
Can you do that?
Or,
Sometimes
Like if
people
you buy a box
more
house
bidding
or
off just to get the property.
we just had to last week, where the property sold for more than the list price.
Yeah, I've been sometimes. You can put a higher bidding on that property just to get it.
No, you get more commission.
Yeah, that is true.
You don't get bonuses, you earn bonuses. But the bonus won't come from the company. Who pays the commission? As a transaction broker, you're gonna run up against several offices here. One of our big competitors, does for the most part single agents. They use it as a listing tool. However, they don't make it crystal clear that if another agent in their company would bring the buyer, they can no longer function as single agents. They would have to do what they call transition to transaction broker. Basically asking the buyer and seller to move from single agency into transaction broker so they can continue with that transaction. And remember again, if they're from the same company, you can't have two single agents. Again, because the agency runs through the broker to the agents, not vice versa. That's why most of the big companies, you'll find that a lot of the single agencies, if they're still out there, are small mom and pops. And they may have a tendency to focus on an area or just listing property. I know a couple offices, their focus is on listing properties and getting the agents to do all the legwork to sell them. So it just depends on how it works. But majority of companies today you're going to find are under transaction broker. Now, how do I combat the single agency when I'm competing for a listing with one of those agents? Well, number one, do we have a lot of similar responsibilities and duties under the law?
Yes.
We just didn't. And the disclosure forms list all those things. When it comes to talking about transaction broker, that's why you can't say that a transaction broker represents the transaction. Because you just hung yourself when it comes to competing with that single agent. As a transaction broker, I can represent both parties in the same transaction, or I can represent one or the other. Statistically, listing agent typically is not going to be the selling agent. Even a lot of times with our on-site offices, where that would be more likely to occur, we still have a lot of situations in there where one of them got the listing, one of them got the sale. So in that situation, they're still gonna represent. The knife to win this argument or discussion, as a transaction broker, your customer is not liable for your actions. As a single agent, because of the fiduciary,
Yes.
the client is responsible for the acts of the agent. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you want to be responsible in case your agent does something wrong? Now, see, that to me, that's the knife. I've shown that we're similar in most ways. But when you look at that, is it worth it? And besides the fact, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why are you hiring an agent? Because of the type of brokerage relationship they have, or because you feel they can get you the most money for your house in the shortest period of time? Which one of those is more important to you? If they say the relationship, I don't want the listing. Because I'm not really there to list a property. I'm there to see if I've got a property that I can get sold. Because if I don't think I can sell it, I don't care if they want to buy it, sell it. But if I don't think that the marketplace is going to have an interest in that property, it doesn't do me any good. Waste of time.
I need some clarification. Okay, I'm the salesperson.
Okay.
I'm a single agent right now, I list this property, and I'm on my way to the broker's office, and I meet someone who wants to buy it. Does that make me a transaction?
No, you have to ask
salesperson?
the parties to sign a transition to transaction notice.
Okay.
So it doesn't just automatically happen. That's a couple pages
Okay.
down.
Okay, I got it, okay.
Now, as a single agent, do you have to give written disclosure that you are a single agent?
Yes.
When do you have to do that? Beginning of what? It's prior to two things. What are they?
Showing the home.
Showing the property,
And signing the sales contract.
signing a contractual agreement, like a buyer brokerage agreement. As a transaction broker, do I have an obligation to disclose?
All known facts that affect the value of the property.
Do I have to disclose in writing? So when I meet you as a potential customer, I don't have to tell you that I'm a transaction broker?
Yes, you do, yes,
But
you
you
have to
have to
disclose,
really write it.
you have to disclose it.
I don't think so.
That wouldn't be honest if you didn't disclose it.
As of July the 1st, 2008, there is a presumption within the state of Florida that unless you indicate otherwise, you're a transaction broker.
Ah, okay.
In case you missed that memo from Mom.
Ah, okay. So you don't have to, unless you are different than a transaction.
Now, if you're gonna be a single agent,
Then you have.
or you're gonna function under non-brokering, that requires written notice. And there is specific wording that has to go on that notice.
So all agents operate under the assumption that we're transaction brokers unless we have a single agent?
Unless your broker tells you otherwise. So I'll make your life real easy. You see the differences to answer questions on the test. You see differences so that you can know how to be competitive with, but you're gonna be a transaction broker. And it is transaction broker, not transactional. There's no AL on the end of it.
That song goes hard, man.
It's also like the word realty. It's realty, what? There's no either. Or realtor. A lot of people use the term realtor. There's no I in realtor.
Realtor.
Remember I said there were two things that you needed to get a good handle on in this class? What were they? The law and the language. I won't ask you how you feel you're doing. You know what? You can't speak the language. It's hard to function in the country, is it not? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question you may choose to address at a different time.
Okay.
You mentioned before that if someone wanted you to asked you to list a property and you didn't think you would be able to sell it quickly, or at a reasonable price that they would accept, that you would turn it down, how often does that actually happen?
Every time it's necessary.
Is it uncommon?
No.
Strategic,
But it's not as common as accepted. And then curse the ground because you did. Because you knew you shouldn't have, but you figure if I don't take it, somebody else will.
Right.
And you know what? It only takes one. I love those sayings. Most of those people are not in business anymore. I'm not here to list your property.
Sometimes better to cut the line and keep it.
I'm here to get your property sold. And for your property, it's gonna take blah, 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 blah. And I got the documentation to justify it. I can't just tell them, I gotta show them. Because you and I don't dictate what their house will sell for. Market does. So if I haven't been studying the market, so I know what's going on in the market, fortunately I have the MOS, which is a big help. And of course, all those other places, like Willow or Zillow.
And also depends if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Well, that's what I mean by studying your marketplace. It might be a situation where, given the reason why the seller is selling, now may not be a good time to sell.
And so if that happens, if you do the research as an agent and you determine that the best time to put it on the market is 6 months from now, do you get them to sign a contract or something so that you're the agent?
If I can get them to, yeah.
Or you reach out to them in 5 months down the line?
Right. And you know what's gonna happen the next day? Some other agent gonna go over and list it at whatever price they want. It's easy to get listings. If you halfway present yourself, and you're with a reputable company, and you'll take the listing on whatever terms they're willing to give it to you on, it ain't hard to get listings. It's just hard to get them sold. If it doesn't sell, you know whose fault it is? Yours. It's always your fault. Because if you say to them after it doesn't sell and it expires, I told you this property was overpriced when I listed it. Their response is going to be this, then why'd you list it? Now what you got to say? Nothing. You're going to stick your tail between your legs and you're going home. You have to decide, am I taking this property to list it? Or am I taking this property to get it sold? First thing I have to figure out is which one of those two the seller wants to do. How does he tell me by that? The house is a mess. Why do they want to sell? Because it's at seller's market right now, and I just want to see what I can possibly get for it. Which means we're going to have an issue when we get to the pricing, because he's going to want to do what? Go up here someplace. All right. This discussion will continue once you get a license. See, but the problem is, that some of the stuff we talk about here have a direct impact upon what you do day in and day out. Right. On page 67, you'll see what the disclosure form looks like for a single agent. By the way, you don't have to have it signed. It shows with signature lines and dates, but as far as the law is concerned, if you just handed them a paper, you've met your requirement. Same thing with non-brokerage relationships.
Do you need proof for handing over the paper?
Yeah, take a picture.
Oh, sure.
Take a selfie with them. Are you kidding? We have so many tools today to cover our derriere that we didn't have 30, 40 years ago.
I'm just gonna tell every client I'm recording, I'm ready to look around the program. That way I understand and I can really take in the values that you wanna.
I'd be real careful with that. You gotta,
Look at that, look, man, how do we sell this real quick? Give you a little kickback on my end.
no, I don't think that's gonna work. On the next page, at the bottom of page 68, it talks about non-brokerage relationship or no representation. I mean, that one should be pretty clear, what? It says no brokerage relationship or non-brokerage. I think non means no, right?
Right.
Okay. And at the top of the next page, you've got a sample of what the disclosure notice looks like. You realize what each one of these disclosure forms do? They simply list the duties of each type of relationship. Let's go to the bottom of page 69, starting with line 3 through 15. Bracketed.
1 to 15.
Page 69, 1 through 15.
Yes.
You said 1 to 15 or 3 to 15?
Three things.
3, yeah. 3 is fine.
3 is fine.
If you're working under a no brokerage relationship, what would you refer to the person you're working, the buyer or seller, as a customer or as a client?
Client.
I'm working for a non-brokerage relationship.
Customer.
Would I refer to the person as my customer, as my client?
Client.
How many of you say client? How many of you say customer? Make your mind up, which way you're going, let's try it again. How many of you say that if you're working with, under a non-brokerage relationship, you would refer to them as a customer? How many of you refer to them as a client? Now, I told you before, the client tied to agent, the tied to agent, the tied to fiduciary. Can I, as this third category, as this non-brokerage, can I represent both parties in the same transaction?
Yes.
No, I don't represent anybody. It says non-representation.
Can you give an example of where someone would do that?
Yes. You drive up to around the community and with a buyer, and there's a for sale by owner. Now, you signed a buyer brokerage agreement with the buyer. So all you really want from the seller is the agreement that if this buyer buys your property, you'll pay me a commission. So I don't have them sign the listing, I have them sign a commission agreement before I take my buyer in there. And I would most likely give the seller a non-brokerage relationship notice. And you do know the fact that he pays the commission does not mean I represent him.
But you can't do that because you have the broker, you don't get paid yourself, it's gotta be paid to the broker.
That doesn't have anything to do with my question.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I didn't get the scenario.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose because he's selling it by owner so that he doesn't have to pay commission? Why would he want to?
That's
pay
why I had
commission?
him sign a commission agreement, that if he chose to buy it from my buyer, he'll pay me a commission.
Oh, okay, so then you wouldn't go any further if he said no.
I'm showing a buyer property.
Just the buyer.
During that time frame,
You have to.
we run past the for sale by owner. And the buyer likes the way it looks outside. So I said, all right, I'll get a hold of him. And so I call him up, explain what happened, ask him if this buyer would purchase your property, would you pay me a commission? The amount in the discussion is irrelevant, get as much as you can. And the seller says, sure. You gotta understand, the majority of for sale by owners will pay a commission. They just don't wanna pay 6.
Yeah.
Because they think of themselves as the listing agent.
Exactly.
So they understand how MLS works.
But you can't put it on MLS if you're not listing.
I'm not listing, no, that's
That's why
not the
it's
point.
sale.
They feel they're like the agents on MLS. Yeah, so therefore, they're willing to cooperate with you, but not 6%. They don't want to list the problem.
How do they usually accept?
3%.
Sure, right.
Again, because of the fact that they view themselves as the listing agent. If they view themselves as the listing agent, like in MLS, then they know that if you bought something through an agent in MLS for your buyer, you'd make 3%. They may even say 2.5%. So, but you can understand the mentality and where they come from with that. And that's fine. I don't need to list the property. If my buyer wants to buy it, we'll buy it.
The example they give in the book has the person taking the listing as a non-representative broker.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how will that one work?
How'd that work? Here's the deal. Here's how my company works. We will put the property on the MLS for you for $500. However, we will not show the property, we will not draw up contracts. We will send, but basically, what am I doing for that stuff? Getting it on the MLS. And they're paying for that. Now, that would be a situation where I would have them sign. I would present to them, try to get them to sign it, the non-brokerage relationship. Because there's no relationship here, I'm just putting an MLS for them. So I don't want a relationship with them.
If you did that, approximately what percentage would you get?
Still probably get 3. 2.5, 3. But understand that the listing broker is only getting a few $100. Because they take a flat fee for putting it on the MLS. Call one of those deals. It's limited service, is what it's called. Call one up and ask them a question. They'll refer you to the seller. They won't even ask questions.
And that is the reason because the sell by owner wants to do that because he wants
No,
to save.
they're doing it because they only got paid a few $100, And for a few $100, I'm doing nothing more than putting the MLS.
I know, but if I'm a sell by owner in my house, I do it because I wanna save the 3%
Right.
that I have to pay to the seller that is representing me.
Right.
Yeah, but-
Well, I tell you what, how about if we do this? How about if we just add 6% to your list price?
That's easy,
Yeah.
and you have more.
If it's viable and it can happen,
Of course.
yeah.
You always have to have the 4 things I said before. Those are automatic. Or it's not gonna sell.
But, where I'm missing a link here. I'm out and a salesperson, okay? We drive past this house, for sale by owner.
Got you.
I am representing my broker. I mean.
Who is representing the buyer, so that means you're representing the buyer.
Yeah, but I have to go through my broker. My broker is responsible for everything that I do. That's like cheating.
What do you mean by going through? I'm not gonna call Ben up and say, hey, I've got it for sale by owner, what should I do? He would say, sell it.
Yes. You are represented.
See, that's why we have training. That's why we have 2 full-time trainers, so that you know what you can and can't do. Unfortunately, now is not the time to do this.
Oh, yes.
So, you go out and take listings. If it varies from the guidelines you've been given to take listings, then you pick up the phone and you text somebody, like myself or Gail, the other trainer, or any of the managers or Ben, and ask for help. But to me, I'm an associate. I'm showing a buyer a property, and I run across a for sale by owner that my buyer is interested in. I'm going to make arrangements to show that property to them. I'm going to ask the seller to sign a commission agreement. I don't need to run to the broker to do those things. It's the brokers to make sure that everything is correct. That's why one of my jobs is to keep tabs on your file and making sure all the documents are done properly.
Now, we're taking that same scenario. I've already showed buyers property. They're out on a Sunday and they find this property for sale by owner. They've got a contract with me, right? So
If you haven't signed one, it's got to buy a brokerage agreement.
If you haven't signed anything, they can go directly to the buyer.
Do whatever they want.
And do everything
Yeah,
direct.
right.
All right, now I'm not.
Wait a minute, I got a question back.
So if a seller calls and he has a FISBO and you put it through your company for $500.
We're not going to do that.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna try to sell it, but I'm just.
No,
worried-
we're not going to do that, period.
You mean at 6?
That's not one of the services we would offer, but go ahead.
Okay.
Ask your question.
Did you say if someone calls up, you could put it in MLS for them?
Generally speaking.
Somebody asked me to give an example of non-brokerage relationship. That's the example, not what we do.
Okay, so none of my stuff, I don't need to know.
Is people that do that? That they just,
Yeah.
what type of companies do that? I'm just kind of
They're
curious.
mostly
Squeezy.
Real estate,
I'm very naive.
that's all you need to know.
A prospective customer comes into my office and says, I'm looking at this brochure, and this house that you're representing interests me.
Okay. Who's you? Who? You said you were representing. Is this one of the company's listings?
Yes, one of the companies.
Okay.
So that person out of the blue says, can I see it?
Mhm.
Do I need to get a signature in any way in advance that I am representing them, or we are representing them? Or do people have more than one broker?
Of course.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and so you don't ask a potential,
That's why you do.
oh, you do ask them to be an exclusive representative for you, but that's not.
Called a
required.
buyer brokerage agreement.
We haven't come across that yet, have we?
No.
Okay, I thought I
And
missed
as
it.
soon as you get the license, we'll come real aggressive. Yes, ma'am.
It's
Do
always
you
in
see people
advance.
that actually sign those?
Yes,
How often?
that depends on you.
coverage right now.
I have a question.
Well, let's put it this way. If you'd like to talk to some of the top producers in the company, ask them if they use it or not. See, because, you want to tell me what problem is right now? You're afraid of this word. And you do not like that word. You didn't when you're 2, and you're no different now. You have a fear of that word.
Rejection.
Do most agents in the company operate under, let me backtrack that. Do most agents in the company not get a contract and it's more verbal? And that's how they
You mean with the
operate?
buyer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question, was there a point at the time past when the market was not doing well? Can you negotiate a commission with the buyer as far as representing them with selling the property for them?
Yeah. The buyer brokerage agreement, and I'll take you like 2 minutes to do this, and you gotta move on. A buyer brokerage agreement, basically the way it's functioned, as far as I view it, is I want to be the broker to negotiate the deal with this buyer if I show the buyer the property. If some other broker shows the buyer the property, or they find it on their own, they're under no obligation. However, if I show them, and that's why in our app files, in your file, you keep a running list of all the properties you've shown them and have them initial. So I've got proof, what? I showed them these 10 properties. So for whatever length of time you do for the buyer brokerage agreement, which could be 2 days, could be 6 months, it's not like a listing. You could come down here for 5 days. Then I want you to sign an agreement that anything I show you during that 5 days, if you choose to attempt to buy it, I will be the agent to submit the offer. Now, there are 2 versions of the buyer paying you. Version number 1 is this. You're gonna pay me $1,000 regardless of what I collect from the seller or the listing agent. So if they wind up giving me, the listing company and through the MLS offers 3%, I get that 3%, or my company gets that 3%, they still owe me that $100, that $1,000.
Why would anyone agree to that?
They want your knowledge and expertise.
Second option, I don't work for less than 3%. So I put 3% in there. However, it will be offset by whatever I collect from the listing office and or the seller. Which means if the listing office is offering 3%, you owe me nothing. If they're only offering me 2.5%, you owe me 10%. I think they're more likely to sign that one. See, you'll never know because you're not going to ever ask. You haven't had guts to do it. How do I know that? By the look on your face right now. Nobody will sign that. Nobody will sign that. I have agents that won't put a buyer in a car if they don't have that, along with pre-approval, along with proof of funds. Because I'm not in the business of being a taxi. I'm not an Uber driver. But you're going to become one if you don't have the guts to do what you need to do. And we have all kinds of training to show you how that works. We got people that can help you with it. There's no excuse other than you got a yellow streak. You need to go home and dye that. Just pick another color other than yellow. You can't get one of these yellow highlighters. The other color is pink.
Dale,
Yes, ma'am.
at Signature, during the first 6 months, do you have senior or seasoned agents that are willing to split commissions if you want to
In a
work
heartbeat.
with them? Okay. Like if you had something that was not the normal and you want someone more experienced and you're willing to
See,
share.
understand here, as the senior managers and as the trainers, we're here to help you. We're not here to do your work.
Support.
Somehow, most agents don't get it. They think we're their slave. I'm serious. So we've instituted, and people, I don't need training. Okay. We've got a new person who's now going to be responsible for tracking all the training. Every time somebody joins the company, there's certain training that you agree to come to. And if you're not at all of it as a new agent, you should be shot. And we're going to track it. So we know what you did or didn't come to. Because we've got agents. Sarah thing, where you can call in, get help. And call one manager, and they'll do part of the contract for them, and then they call somebody else, and the other manager does the other part for it. And what these people don't realize is, we talk to each other. 6 or 7 of us are right around the corner here. And she just got left off. Unless she shows up for training, nobody's gonna help her. It's terrible that we have to resort to things like that to get people in. Now, she doesn't have a, I work a full-time job excuse. I mean, there are some legitimate excuses. I got 3 kids under 2. I mean, those type of things come up. But to sit there and say, I don't need training, and I wouldn't expect you guys to say that, even if you've been in real estate before. I think that they find that it's a lot more difficult transition for them than it is for you who knows nothing. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I was teaching public school. I didn't know doodly about real estate. So if you told me the wall was black, I didn't know any better. The wall's black. Yep. But that's how the buyer brokerage agreement works. I mean, there's a little more to it than that, but it gives you an idea. But to me, it's like, would you take a verbal listing with a seller?
No.
I would.
No.
But if you don't do a buyer brokerage agreement with the buyer, you're basically doing
Verbal.
a verbal listing agreement, except instead of it being with the seller, it's with the buyer.
You need to protect yourself, sir.
True. Yeah. All right, moving on. Page 7. In the middle of page 70, it says disclosure requirements. Let's put a bracket from line 1 through 23, the whole page. And then go to the next page, lines 1 through 12. Put a star beside of the paragraph on 71 that says recording and retention of disclosure documents. And on line 14, there are 2 words you should highlight. 5 years.
On line 1?
On line, I'm sorry, not 14, 4. On 71, 4. Can't read
Okay.
In the middle of that line forward, it says 5 years.
The star.
I think IRS is
Who
that.
retains all those documents here in signature?
Mhm.
Somebody you do? Lawyers?
Hmm? Yeah, that part. No, see, everything is digitalized now.
Everything's on the file.
So with this program that we have, that, you know, contact management, it's not really contact management, it's more documentation and storage. You can access your file from anywhere on the face of the earth, or space,
For 5 years.
if you can get it in the internet. So I can go right into a seller's house, sit down at their computer, pull up my file, pull up my app file, sit right there. See, I like them to use their computer when they sign electronically. Do you know why?
No.
Because you can trace it back to their computer. If they say, I didn't sign it,
Ah.
Especially with the support of the fully IP.
yep. Yep. Now, like everything else, there's always exceptions, things you don't have to do. That's on page 71, you'll see there's 6 of them. It says there are certain interactions of a licensee has with the buyer or seller do not constitute a brokerage relationship. The first one is if I already know that you're working with another agent, I can presume that you have some, because even if you don't say anything to me, what can I presume? You are. Transaction broker. So that works same thing as, you know, if you bring, you know, if I'm having an open house and this buyer comes along with their agent, but the agent never tells me what their relationship is, they give me a business card. I don't have to ask them, how are you representing the buyer? If they say nothing,
They're transaction.
then I know it's transaction broker. Which means I don't have to say anything to their buyer. Well, I shouldn't be saying anything to their buyer anyhow. Probably might tick them off a little bit. Second one says, bona fide open house. It's not something that requires disclosure. Now, you understand that just making the disclosure from a written standpoint doesn't apply to a transaction broker. Because if we say nothing, by law, they have the right to assume.
Assume that we're a transaction broker.
And again, but that's why you gotta use the word customer, not the word client. I mean, on the test, it also makes a difference, but more importantly, real life. The next one is unanticipated casual encounters, like happy hour. Because that would not be a situation where you're gonna get into a big discussion about their personal business. What you're gonna do is you're gonna hopefully get a what? An appointment. I'd love to sit down with you and discuss it. Are you available Tuesday at 3 or Thursday at 4? I have those 2 times available next week. Actually, I have the whole week available. But I don't want them to know that.
Yeah, you need
You have
to
to
show that
add
you're busy.
That's this, you know, salmon chips thing. The next one, number 4, responding to general factual questions. You know the minute that they know you're in real estate, they're gonna start asking questions. Just like you do with me. You ask me a lot of questions, you're not asking me a book, it's things that came to mind, either that you wonder about, or it sounds different than what you heard before. So you're gonna constantly be asked questions. And you want to learn, as you get the type of questions you get, where you can give them reference to verify what you're saying.
Like the advice you gave us, that if we don't know the answer, we can say, but we can find out for you.
Right. Exactly. The next one says situations in which licensee's communication with the prospective buyer or seller are limited to either written or oral communication that is general. And then it talks about new residential units. You know, when you walk into, say, this Seven Bridges Sales Center, everything tells you that the salespeople are not working for you, they're working for, that's what that's referring to. On page 72, no. On 72, this page, along with the disclosure form on the next page, talks about this idea of transitioning from single agency to transaction broker. Now, see, as an agent, if I get to the point where I've got the buyer and I have another agent in the office has the property, before I take them out, I'm going to have to give them this disclosure. If I don't make it a part of my initial discussions with them. Because we know there's two things trigger disclosure. That's showing property and signing a contractual agreement. Which means if you're gonna have them sign a buyer brokerage agreement before you show them property, before you have them sign the buyer brokerage agreement, you'd have to give them this transition notice. Because because the company is functioning as a single agent. And embedded in that disclosure are the requirements of a transaction broker. You see the 7 on listed there.
What percentage of the time, generally speaking, that we have a listing, single, and then we also have another person that buys from within, another agent that's
Buys from, yeah.
all the
If you got
time?
600 agents, how often do you
Okay.
think that's gonna happen? It's gonna happen, it's gonna happen a higher percentage time than a company that has 4 agents or 50 agents.
The reason why I ask is because of the subdivision of how the company is structured, because if someone that's in a beach office over there, typically the client that's going to them as opposed to a Kings Point is not
Right.
the same.
Yeah, that same may be here. Because you've got a lot of the on-site people don't like to leave on-site. And so if there's they'll refer them out to somebody else.
And like you said, in Miami, it's people that is working from here, so it's very probable.
And again, the on-site people, because if they're in places like Central Village and Kings Point and stuff, there's a tremendous amount of business there. So, unless they really want to work 24 hours a day, they can make a nice living without ever leaving Kings Point. But people will come in and they'll refer them out to people from Saturday.
So they just list the Kings Point property,
Well-
basically?
A higher percentage than anybody else. But Steve, if you're on an on-site office, the mentality is totally different than if you're in a general real estate office.
As soon as you see that the agent that is representing that property is under the signature umbrella, you already know that you have to do the disclosure.
You don't have to do anything.
Well, the transition.
No,
Yeah, if they are.
no,
representing-
no. We function as a transaction broker. There is no transition.
Oh, well, yeah, if that is the case if I'm a single,
Well, you're correct, but you're not gonna be a single. At least here.
maybe in 3 years, no.
On page 74, something I've never figured out why he was doing it. It's called a designated sales associate. It has specific parameters. It has to be non-residential. The two parties have to have assets in excess of $1 million. And what happens is, a sales associate is assigned to represent one of the people and the other agent the other, under a single agency relationship. The broker steps out of that. They're there to guide, but they're not as involved as they would be in a normal transaction. I've never quite figured out what this is for. I've never had someone who had done this. That doesn't mean it isn't done. But number one, if you work in residential, you're never going to do it. Question? Okay. On page 75, it shows you what the single agent notice looks like. It looks like the 9 things we looked at. And then on page 76, let's highlight lines 7 and 8. And then highlight those, 9 bullets? These are all activities that can terminate a brokerage relationship. Just highlight the bullets. See here. Yes. Guy? You'll see the different reasons for why a listing would be, brokerage relationship would be terminated. However, none of those will be the answer to your question. Because the question is going to be all of the following except all the following are ways that brokerage relationships can be terminated except. So they want to know the wrong answer. So how do you answer that question? You eliminate all the right ones. You eliminate all the ones that are on the list. Which means that you have to do what ultimately? Be left with, well, I have to be left with one or I got a problem. I got no place to answer.
Can you explain the 5th one a little more clearly than the?
Yeah, sure, which one?
It's the 5th bullet down.
Let's pull it down. And written disclosure is required.
No,
No,
principal
principal
revokes.
revokes.
I'm on the wrong page.
76.
Line 17.
Principal revokes a single agent representation or the relationship, I'm sorry, or the customer revokes a transaction broker relationship. Well, one example would be is I took a listing as a single agent, and I discussed it with the broker, and the broker agreed that we shouldn't have taken the listing, so we're terminating the listing, which also does what? Terminates the relationship.
But then there's some penalties that explains.
Yes. For example, you want to terminate the listing agreement early, before the 6 months is up, seller, no problem. $1,000 termination fee. Plus, if during our protection period, which is typically 90 to 180 days, if somebody comes back that you showed the property to before you terminated, you're going to owe me a commission.
And that $1,000, is that stipulated up front in the contract when you?
In the listing agreement, yes.
Thank you.
We have agents that number is 3,000 to 5,000. How many times their listings are terminated? Not the seller? None. You're right. Yes, sir.
If you are terminating a listing because the seller wants out, do you put in there also that if they decide to relist within a period of time, they have to come back to you?
It's not in there, but I know some of the agents that have put that wording in, yes. Tell me this, would this be a good example of the terminating of a brokerage relationship? You present an offer, and then your seller tells you to withdraw it. I mean, your buyer tells you to withdraw the offer. Would that be an example of a brokerage relationship being terminated? No. The relationship wasn't terminated. The offer was. I don't know, that just came to mind for some reason.
I have a question there.
Yes.
Let's say a seller, like most people, when they sell their property, sometimes they buy something else,
Mhm.
they move it. And let's say they decided buying another property, that's why they left, but the deal fell through, where they were moving to, and they decide that they need more time, and they're
Mhm.
not going to list the property anymore for a couple of months. Would they still be penalized because of that?
No, because we could potentially put the property on temporarily off the market. Mhm. That's a very bad contingency. Because, what she said, in case everybody didn't hear, she said you could have a contingency that says that this contract is based upon me being able to close on my current home. See, the only problem with that is your house currently listed?
I had that.
No, but, we're gonna go home tomorrow and list it. Have a nice day.
That happened to me in my previous house. I had contingency.
Now, if you find out that they are scheduled to close in 2 weeks, and you talk to the listing agent, and you talk to them, and find out where they're at. You find out they're paying cash, that the inspections have gone through, everything's done. Odds are taking a contract with that contingency in has a low risk. We know it ain't closed until it's closed. But we can look at what the situation currently is before we talk to our seller about that scenario.
I have a question.
Yes.
She just said that someone takes the listing off temporarily. Okay, they have a 6-month contract for the sales for 6 months. Now, they take it off for a month. So now that is extended for that month?
If you put it in the contract, yes. Yes, and I've had agents do that. It was taken off for 2 or 3 months, they decided to do some rehabbing on the house. Because they realized that they did, it would work in their favor. So they obviously wanted to take it off the market. So basically what they did is they signed a new listing agreement for, I don't remember what it was, 6 months or a year. But that's, you know, that's not a totally unusual situation in today's world. Because right now, you look out there in that marketplace, you got two options. You pay top dollar to get something rehabbed, or you pay less and you go in and do it yourself. Like all the shows on HGTV. I'm addicted to that. All right, while we take a break, we'll come back.
That sucks, right?
Oh, I totally know that. I certainly know that. And, I just, I mean, that doesn't become an additive.
If you wanna plug in your phone, I'm at 7% and I'm not gonna get home. I just want to turn the car, so the Waze uses it. So, she's like, are you getting next to the key? I'm like, a little.
The only thing you can do is to do it in Jersey. Have right first review. That's just saying, so with someone else in Jersey. That house in Jersey. That's why it wasn't in contract yet. Except that keep your house on the market.
Where are you getting that second name from?
I followed it for a couple of months,
That was the Oreo, oh, it's called Huntington That's where we need to.
Well,
Okay. Okay, because I saw this and it says Signature International office as well. I think you said there's 3 or 4 office companies within that office. Yeah, there's Kings Point, there's King Point, Kings Point, there's 2 Kings Point plazas. But in the same Brookville Plaza, yes, there's another business on the other end, near the medical supply. I went in there, years ago. I inquired. I live across the street between this guy and the Nico. We go back and forth, so. That Denise was the person that I spoke to one day at the front. It's central.
If you turn on airplane mode, it'll charge faster.
Where Click is, the Jewish store. Yeah, right beside Click, and they have sugar with chocolate, every kind of yeah, she's really nice and pretty, like Elton Skelton. She's actually nursing, but they have little stuff in there, little things, nice. Make your own trailways and stuff. They have some stuff that's
I just got that chance too.
each of the offices, the people that they put on the wall is only pertaining to that, if they're assigned to that office. Just getting everybody.
This is everything. No, it's 600. They're double. I think so that they're
That's what. Yeah, we live on Hagen Branch. It's right next to, you know what else? You know where the library?
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, because I think I remember seeing everyone, I used to go before my adopted father died, Dr. Phil lived in the Tivoli. Further up, yeah. When I'm over, go to visit my nephew 1 year over, friend over like 110 days, I swear to God, sometimes I swear these places. I got a few, what I call a night, 90s club. She's in 38. I used to go and take her to, her husband died, and so I would go and take her to Dunkin' Donuts, and they all go and hang out. I used to building 14. On the other side, I have another friend that his mother-in-law is our 15, the first year, 16 and 15. Okay, yeah. In fact, his mother-in-law just died. You have to make a left and then the first, yeah. Yeah. Right. And then the first. Yeah, they're in 15. Yeah, but that goes, you're able to the other buildings. Yeah.
At 8:30 p.m.
February, I thought that the person that was supervised being are you in those terms where they don't have your contract, I mean, less than, not more than, their restrictions,
1 of this chapter talks about brokerage offices. Can a sales associate have their own office?
No.
No.
As associate have their own office.
So why not?
You can have your own office in the brokerage.
No, because you have associates, you have your own office. If you work at the sales associate.
But I feel like I'm very important when I have my own office.
Then you have to wait for the broker's license, and then you can do it.
Is that true?
Let me ask a question, have you been in this class? Have you been in this class since it started? Because what you're asking me, I'm not quite sure how to answer it in a calm voice.
But
Well,
no.
we don't have an office, it's a legitimate question. I'm a sales associate, I like to have my own office. I didn't set my own list, did I? I didn't set my own
If
list.
you, but.
My own
And where are
office.
you gonna have this office?
In his house?
Anywhere.
Oh, so you can operate on your own?
No.
No, sir.
If you have your
No,
own
sir.
office, you are operating on your own.
No, sir, I didn't say that, did I? You were assuming I said that, but I didn't say that. I have my own office, but I'm not operating my own. I just have, when I have privacy to do my own things.
Or maybe you own
A desk.
You can talk
He
about
wants
a
a
desk.
cubicle.
You can do
You can work from home.
from the car
Could be
or
at home.
at home.
Could be at
But you
home.
must do it through the
It could be at
broker.
home, but I have an office at home.
It must be registered
That's what I'm
and you
hoping
work
for.
for the broker. So
Yes.
the broker's got
Yes,
to.
I'm very conscious about that. I
That
work for the
was
broker,
class
I
101,
work for the
guys.
broker, I have obedience to the broker. The list belongs to the
Doing
broker.
business from home.
Everything is to the broker.
Yeah, this is not
That's
talking
it.
about when you
Yeah,
work,
like
like,
you
he's talking
desk
about to
with a
open an
printer
office
and
as a business, as a broker.
He's not talking
But
about business.
I think it was a legitimate question, maybe you're wrong, but. I
Okay,
can
let's
remember
let
wrong.
Dale answer.
He's so confused.
No, I don't think it's confused.
No, wait.
I think it's a legitimate question.
No, I understand you, never mind, I'm out of the subject, I'm not here.
Good. I am.
Well,
Now,
You have
you're
to
gonna
share
listen,
the broker.
you're not gonna talk, and everybody else is gonna leave alone. I'm the only one that has the right to jump his case. The
okay.
rest of you do not. Now, when we talk about having an office, in order to have an office that you can identify as your office, you must be an active broker. Period. Nothing to think about, nothing to ask. Now, do you work out of your home? Do you have your files, or actually company's files, in your computer? Yes, that is not legally considered an office, because you're not allowed to have an office. You're not allowed to breathe without permission. And you're asking me, why can't I have my own office? Because you can't.
But I didn't mention it was a legal office, did I?
You really want to play this game?
No, I don't wanna play any game, no,
Okay,
no.
because that's what
No,
you're doing right
I'm
now.
not playing any game, I just wanna, I get the feeling to ask help, why I cannot have my own office?
Because Mom says so.
Oh,
Because the
okay.
law says so. But part of that, if you missed the 8,000 times I've thrown it at you.
But you can work from wherever you wanna work from.
Yeah.
So you
You
can
can work, you
Different
can work
to
from
what he's
Starbucks.
explaining in this chapter.
And there's a lot of agents that do.
My question.
You know, you can operate just about anywhere. But having an office that is registered with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, you have to be an active broker to do that. I'm a broker associate, so right now, I could not open up my own office. Because I got that word associate. Now, I've had an office in my home. Why? Because what I was doing was a conflict for me to have the active license. So I didn't place the license with the company, I placed it in my home. And if zoning allows, FREC will allow you to have an office in your home. Now, but I have an office in my home because I'm an active broker. Right now, I couldn't do that. I'd have to switch back to active broker. Obviously, that would be a little bit of a problem since I'm working for this company. But I couldn't be an active broker in this company. Because they'd have to make me an officer in the corporation. I don't think Ben, Jack, and Mark are interested in me being one of the officers of the corporation, so that's why I'm broker associate. Because, you know, so that's part legal and that's part business. But no, as a sales associate, you can work anywhere you want to. But understand this, you can't have an office.
I have no concept of a legal office or office. I just said office. And I missed the
All right,
last class.
so let me ask you a question. What are you gonna do in that office?
Activities of management of my business or.
What's your business?
Or call customers or fill up a paperwork. You said we have to learn to fill it up to.
Okay. Are you gonna advertise that as a location?
No, of course not.
Then he doesn't have an office.
Like I said to you, sir, I didn't have a concept of legal office. To me, an office is an office. I didn't have that concept of legal office. I didn't ask him. I didn't have that concept. I just said, what place, private place to work.
That's not an office, that's not what an office is.
Okay then.
Your desk and your home.
When it comes to legal terms.
You gotta learn the language.
Now, before we had the computers, we had file folders. You couldn't take the original home legally. It wasn't supposed to leave the office. But that's why you're giving access to the app files. If you walk into Ben and you say, you know, I really enjoyed it here, Ben, but I gotta move on to do something else, everything will be shut down faster than you bat an eye. Why? We have to shut down all your accesses to keep you away from our files. Files are not your files. Nothing is yours. You keep telling me you work for the broker, but then when I say nothing is yours, you look at me like I got 3 heads. You know, like, gotta make your mind up. So everything I do is under the supervision of the broker. That's why a good broker has trainers, training programs, and everything you need to understand how to do it the right way and our way. Because we work very hard at the our way part to make your life easier and more productive. Yes.
In our agreement with Ben or the SIA, are there non-competing clause after the 2 years or a time period? Say someone we signed up the first 2 years is doing business through a signator, and 5 years down the road they call you back, that customer, they want it. If you've left SI signature after 2 years, is there a non-competing clause for a specific period of time after?
Depends on your independent contractor's agreement.
Okay.
Understand that they may look boilerplate, but they're not necessarily. It depends. Depends who's been sitting down front of them. So it's not simple, and it's not something I want to discuss with
Okay.
this second.
All right.
But a legitimate question. Okay, page 82. Let's start on page 82 with bracket line 9 through 21. Look at the 2-line paragraph. Help you with the work.
If we got that page, I would not ask that question. You know,
Number 3.
See, that's why you gotta take me at face value.
yeah, but.
For
when
you,
it's a
page-
legal
There's no
office,
what. There's no
you know,
what.
Yeah, it was a matter of.
It was a matter of interpretation, yes.
The word is black. You gotta believe that.
You don't have to believe it, you just have to accept it.
Accept.
Okay, whether you believe it or not. Now, there's some key words in this paragraph that set the parameters for an office. Does an office have to be in a permanent structure?
Yes.
No.
In a permanent?
Yeah?
Yes.
Show me where it says permanent.
No.
Well, no.
What do you mean by permanent?
Could be mobile office.
Show me the word permanent, that's all I ask. You see stationary, but you don't see permanent,
It could be temporary.
which means a construction trailer that's used on site.
Yeah.
Of course, they wouldn't play around with those two words in a test question, would they?
Yeah, that looks like it.
How big does the office have to be?
It doesn't say?
Doesn't say. But it does give me some parameters. I gotta have a door,
Yeah.
or we can have privacy.
Yes.
I have to have stationary construction, or better. ID, a place to store records. Of course, in the world's day, I walk around my records.
Yeah, with the platform. Fine.
And then a place where you can have meetings. Which means this room right here
Could be one.
would be an office.
Why don't they require them to have a telephone? That's the most basic
Because when you
thing.
have a cell phone, you can talk to a cell phone, you don't need a fixed phone.
Do you need to have a telephone?
No.
Do you need to have a bank account?
Yes. It's a checking account.
What?
No, it said not required.
Not required for that.
So I don't have to have an operating account?
Yeah.
It does not require the broker to have a telephone desk, business, checking account license.
Yeah, it's
What
like
is
other
it?
citizens, other citizens. That's it, not need a bank account?
That's
Okay, no problem.
Works for me.
Go to 1099 me when I donate 10 grand to the church every month.
The IRS will be visiting.
Kidding me? My
Just
boss will
cash.
agree with me.
Just cash.
So it doesn't look like much of an office to me,
No.
because you're used to see the storefronts with all the decorations and the pit and everything else. You know how many offices are in Boca, with a Boca address? I think 300 or 400.
100 right here.
Yeah.
Don't get lost in public.
I mean, why wouldn't it not require a business checking account?
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
even when the broker takes money, a deposit, etc., that has.
Well,
to
we
be-
do not have an escrow account with this company.
What is it called then?
It's a title company.
We give it to the title company. Because the last thing I want you to do as an agent in
Be
this
responsible
company is
for
have an escrow check account. But there's nothing worse than that you could possibly do. Because when it comes to escrow, and you'll see when we talk about escrow, if you've got an escrow check in your hand, only bad things can happen. Once you get rid of it and give it to somebody else and have something in writing that says, I don't have it anymore, then life becomes a whole lot happier for me. That's one of my jobs. Like I told you, this is not my job. I just do this for fun. I know that's got to say. Now, the point being there is, the law is not concerned about how pretty your office is, how efficient your office is. Does it allow you to conduct business like you want to conduct business? None of that means anything to them. Their main concern is when somebody walks in that door, they know it's a real estate office. Well, the sign part is coming.
And then somebody has a broker license.
Yes. Which means that sign will indicate that. But we'll get, the sign is a little bit. The second part of this page talks about branch offices. First of all, what's a branch office?
It's
It's
another arm operation.
Could we say it is another location other than the main office where the broker does business?
Okay.
How about this? The broker has in their ads 2 locations. One, which is the main office, and the other location that he shows in the ad, he does not do business there. He doesn't have a sign there. No associates are assigned there. Nobody works out of that office. No records are kept there. Would that location, given the parameters I just gave you, would that location be considered a branch office?
No.
No, because it's not registered as an office.
I have a question for you. Let's assume that he also has, that he does have a sign there. When the public comes up, he doesn't have a sign. No, doesn't have to have a sign. Has none of the things that makes it an office, except for one. And you forgot about a very, very important person in answering my question. Public has been told he has 2 locations in their advertising. So he damn straight better have 2 registered offices with the department or he's in violation of law. Because whatever you show the public had better be what you showed them. No sign, no activity, no nothing. But in his advertising, he showed both locations. Which means the public would have the right to assume that those are 2 offices. And that those offices have been registered with the department. Are you getting the message that what the public sees is what the public has the right to agree or believe?
Yes.
That's because in the past there were too many agents that wanted to play games. There's still too many that play games.
There's still ways to just lie, do it.
Yeah. Oh, in any business, there's always ways
There's always a
to do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's no business on the face of the earth that that doesn't happen.
So real estate.
You'll also notice it says that the zoning permits, back to you can't have an office in your home. It provides the required sign. We'll get to the sign. Now, let's talk about registration of the branch office. When you look in the departments and you verify somebody's license, if you see a license number that starts with BO, that stands for branch office. Whereas CQ would be what it would show on the main office.
Corporations or
That's, yeah.
What is it, corporation?
Corporations or LLC, any of the, it's a term to recognize that it's a business entity, not a person. I think it would be the easiest way to describe it. Now, how about this? Here's your main office. And over here, on the other side of town, you decided to open up a branch office. You have to have the same requirements that any, the main office has to have. So we'll assume that that's the case. Now, however, this office didn't do that well. So the broker has decided to move that office to here,
To another location.
Not
to another
transferable.
location, and close this location down.
Not transferable.
Now, can we transfer the license?
No.
No.
So you tell me I have to get another license?
Yes.
Okay, that's what it says in your notes. Main office, because you have to have a main office, you have to have at least one office. That office can be moved around by simply putting them on notice. Obviously, anytime I do any of this stuff, the department's involved in one way or the other. They have to be told about it. Now, so I couldn't take the license with me, so I had the new license. So that means now I have the main office license and 2 branch offices, as far as the department is concerned. I may not be using it.
Can you close it? Can you notify them that you don't wanna work in that branch anymore, or?
Well, it's not, it's the license, so there's nothing that you have to do.
Okay, so it's just, okay.
But let's say 6 months down the road, which is still within the license period, you decide to reopen this office. What do I need to do as far as the department is concerned? I have to do 2 things. I have to what? Tell them I'm reopening the office.
And see if it's expired.
Do I need to pay a fee?
No.
No. Why? Because the license is still there.
Still active.
I couldn't move it to this location, so the license is still over here for that location.
Do they
So
have-
if during the license year, before that license expires, I move back in, I simply have to tell them that I'm moving back here.
When is
So
the,
so now I've got 2 branch offices and a main,
how often you have to renew the license?
every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
All the licenses are 2 years. After you get past the first one.
Which
So can you,
leads me to the next question. Somewhere in the book, what page was it? It says that you have to get, the pre-license, the post-license. No,
But that is education.
there was four brackets. Pre-license, course 1, course 2, and then the post, and then the
Oh,
continuing.
but that's when they were talking about 4-year college graduates or
That's,
attorneys.
okay.
That's a separate little discussion of its
Okay.
own.
so can I just ask a stupid question?
Mhm.
So from what you just said, so this person can have a license and,
It's not a person, it's not a personal license, it's a company license.
okay,
That's 3 locations, I've got 3 people. It's all the same company. Unlike Ben's where there's different companies. This is ABC Realty and it has 2 branch houses. Well, for example, Century Village is a separate brokerage firm. It was the first brokerage firm of this group that we have now. The main office, the CQ office, is in Pembroke Pines. All the rest of them, the one in Deerfield, the one in Boca, the one in West Palm, are POs, BOs. But they're all Century Village real estate. The difference is their location. They also talk about this temporary shelter.
Oh, yeah.
What determines if a temporary shelter has to be registered as an office?
If it becomes permanent.
What do you mean by if it becomes permanent?
Like when you open a development, When you have a developer with a new subdivision and they decide to post a trailer, and it's a temporary office where they conduct
Still have to have a
business, but then
license.
once they sell.
All right, now, let's assume this. The broker, or one of his associates, is friends with the sales manager for this, well, and they have all but finished a project they're doing. All they really have left are the 4 models. The developer has decided that he wants to move all the sales staff to the new location. So he gives you a listing on the 4 properties. Now, that temporary shelter, that trailer is still there. They left it there. They didn't need it right then. The broker has made it, the associates, all the associates aware of the listing and the fact that there is a trailer on site that they can have access to. You can use it to get out of the weather, to be able to talk about the properties, but you keep no records there, you close no transactions there, you don't have sales associates there, you don't have someone as a receptionist there. Given that scenario, would that location have to be listed or registered as an office?
No,
The answer is no. But if I had people assigned there on a regular basis, I had a receptionist there, we kept records there, now we're conducting brokerage business. So we need a location for that. Which means you simply have to register it as a branch office. Now, in a real life situation, you know, if I was a broker and I had that situation, for the little bit of money it's going to take to do it, I'm going to do what? I'm going to register as an office. Then we can do whatever we want to. Besides the fact, I'd like to impress some of the other developers in the area where I might get that opportunity to take over the tail end of a project when they want to move on. So it's, you know, there's a whole lot of reasons why you may want to do it. Not have anything to do with legal.
Which is the cost of the fee to register?
Less than $100.
Nothing.
Yes. You know, business license, you have to pay the county will probably be more than the real estate license.
And that's still like $110.
Any questions on the office? Anybody?
No.
Okay, let's go to page
Yes,
8.
I have a question about if your broker has a business with a developer, usually the commission is 3% max, or it goes by certain rules, or
Whatever's negotiated.
Okay. And you just send the commission agreement.
Right. Well, actually, it's probably signed, that would probably be a little more involved because you use the trailer and everything else, so there's more business aspect to it, which again is irrelevant to our discussions now. Now, every office has to have a sign. Would it make sense that certain things, minimum, would have to be on that sign?
Yeah.
Would it make sense it would have to be located there where it is conspicuous to the public?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to page 83. Let's go to line 1 that says office signs, bracket to the bottom of the page with a star. Starting on page 83, line 1, where it says office signs, and a bracket to the bottom of the page.
And start?
Start at line 1 where it says office signs. A bracket to the bottom of the page, and a star beside the bracket. The star is the whole thing. Because I said, put a bracket, and then put a star beside the bracket. Must be that accent. I'm speaking the wrong language. I told you I have two languages, right?
Yes.
Southern
Southern.
and English. Sometimes it get all jumbled up, and then I live with a New Yorker. And Italian on top of that. And Capricorn. I have a daughter that's also a Capricorn. Imagine what that household was like. And I'm still in one piece.
Which is why you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be working late too.
No.
Ooh, I
Sorry,
didn't say
I'm
that.
sorry. It's a joke, please.
All right, when it comes to the sign, is there a minimum amount of information that has to be on that sign?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to give you a hint. There's two mandatory things.
The license number, the broker's name.
No, you said I had to have a company.
What the broker's licensing name.
The license-
Broker's name, or one of the broker's names. If there were 4 or 5 brokers in the company,
Yeah, all that.
only one of them would have to be on the sign.
Okay.
That doesn't mean
Oh,
they
yeah,
wouldn't
they
be,
have to
just
be.
doesn't mean they have to. And what else? No,
It says license.
licensed real estate broker, and the license can go LIC period. So the minimum has to be the name of of one of the brokers and the licensed real estate broker. Now, if you're doing business as ABC Realty LLC,
Then you will have.
then you gotta add that. For example, when I had the license at home, I was a sole proprietor. I didn't have an office or anything, or company at that point. Now, I'm gonna describe the scenario to you, and you tell me if it's okay. Our house is a 3 split, and one of the office was back where there were 2 rooms and a bathroom. And we walked down a long hallway right into the middle room, which is my office. It looks like one. I've got one of the big desks that weighs 800 pounds as of now. And I have all kinds of papers up there, so it looks real important. It's all garbage. I try to keep my wife out of there so she doesn't feel like me to get rid of it. That doesn't work well. I have a sign. On the desk, I get a little thing that's a bunch of cubby holes. On top of the cubby holes, I have a frame about the size of those frames there. On there, I have K. Dale Doyle, which is my legal name, and I have license, LIC period, real estate broker on the sign. Am I good to go?
No.
Why not?
It's not registered.
Because you're not registered as a broker.
All right,
Broker associate.
I'm registered.
Ah,
Are we good to go?
yes.
Yes.
Ah, well, no, because you don't have a sign.
Needs to be.
Yeah, no, I told you I have a sign.
Oh, yeah?
It's sitting right on top of the cubby hole.
No, but it has to be outside. For the socket.
It does.
Yeah.
Show me where it says it has to be
It
outside.
says exterior or interior of the
Okay, so it
entrance.
doesn't.
You know that every time I do that, you know you screwed up, right? You're finally realizing that.
I like how you shoot out the answers there, you just shoot them out until you get one.
She's not having much luck today. You don't want to go into the casino tonight. It's probably bad.
Okay, You don't have to have it exposed outside.
It has to be on or near the entrance to the office, so that when people enter the office, they can see the sign.
So is that okay, that above the cubby?
No, I'm doing something illegal. I love it when people ask me this question.
Well, I'm thinking exterior of the entrance, so I'm thinking like somewhere along the wall before.
What's it
you
say,
go in.
inside, interior and exterior?
It
Or
says, it says both, interior or exterior to the principal office. But
Okay.
somehow I was stuck on the wall.
But it says old.
happens.
It says old. How big do the letters have to be?
Doesn't say.
Doesn't say. Used to be, there, the letters had to be a minimum size. Now, there's no minimum. Yeah.
Each side.
But it does have to be readily observable by the public when they enter the office, either on the interior of the office or exterior of the office.
On the wall.
Used to be, it had to be on near the exterior entrance, so. What about this? I'm on the 3rd floor, and in the lobby, there's a place where all the people in the building are listed. And I've got my name and licensed real estate broker, indicating I'm in suite 302.
No,
Is that good enough?
no,
No.
No, you still have to have it on
no,
the
because it has to be inside
Maybe.
the office, o sea,
That's just the
either
director.
before things inside the office or inside the office.
You need one on the 3rd
So
floor.
is it okay or not?
No.
No? It's not on or near the entrance to the
No,
office.
it's in the lobby. You have
I gotta go to the 3rd floor to get on or near the entrance of the office, not of the building.
I am confused now. The office is in the building.
Yeah, that's
It's
not
in the
easy.
lobby. To get, let me finish, right? To get to your office, I have to go through the lobby.
Right, it's a lobby, not an office. No, they don't count as a name of the office.
Have you ever been to a doctor's office? Like especially in here?
I never remember.
I can't help you, bro.
Can't help you too, bro. Can't help you too, bro.
I don't even have insurance, so.
Can the sales associates' names be on the sign?
No.
Yes.
However, must they be visibly separated from the brokers?
Yes.
So that everybody knows who the peons are? No, that's not it. Your worker bees. Who's the queen? Ben. Well, think about it. Ben is, well, we can make him the king, so he's okay. But if you think about a beehive, think about a beehive.
Yeah, he will have the role.
What's the every other bee's job?
To
take
To take care of the queen.
Does he watch these?
So in a real estate office, what's your job?
Does he
To
watch?
take care of the men. But in my mind, it's the same concept. Experience tape, that's right there.
It's only for 3 years, then
Well,
you can move on.
No,
This one's for you, man.
no.
At least he's got a.
But I
good
find
sense of
analogies to the real estate in the weirdest places. I was watching a show and they were talking, it was about bees. And I realized that's kind of like what Ben's got, because they're all hanging on him too. Not physically, but, he only gets about 800 emails a day, I think.
He's taking on the responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But understand that Ben is responsible for 700, 800 people, legally responsible for them. That's why we have a corporate attorney. And her job is strictly to deal with the company. Her name is Kristen. She can't help you, can't help your customers. Actually, he can help you if there's
Something
company,
happens.
but can't help your customers. Because it would be a conflict of interest to be the attorney of the company and then represent one of the customers. All right, so no big deal with the sign. Can a sales associate have their own sign?
Yeah, the license, you have your sign.
On their desk, name their name.
Oh, how about the car sign?
And actually, you mentioned
have their
something about the
license on
broker
there.
has to have all the licensee, the license of the licensees
But that's
that are
not a
working
sign.
for you.
But that's not a sign though,
No, it's not a sign.
right?
Well, here's the deal. You can't have your own office, so guess what else you won't have?
We can't have your own sign.
And when I'm talking about signs, I'm not talking about the magnet signs on the side of your car, or the wrapping like the one I drive. Okay, next page,
So just.
84.
Good, I have a question.
Yes.
Like, if you have all the displays in the sales associate, that's not considered signs?
No.
Just.
A sign is something that makes the public aware that this is a real estate office. The public rarely if ever sees this room. That could turn into the wall of shame. We shall see. Okay, advertising. On 84, here we go. Starting with middle of the page where it says advertising in big letters. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
And you see that that's line number 1.
Yes.
Okay, and you see at the bottom of the page, there's line 12.
Yes.
I'd like you to connect 1 to 12. Try a different way of approaching it. And then we jump up to the top of page 85. You see the first number is 1. And you'll see right above the false advertising gray box, there's what?
21.
21. Connect the 1 to the 21. And then, if you will, please, going back to where we started this, and read through the information, starting with line 1, or actually 2, on 84, that 21 lines on that page. on the board is a full-page ad to run in the Sun Sentinel by ABC Realty LLC this Sunday. You are looking at the whole ad. Is that ad legal?
No.
Yes, it is.
That's the ad I'm running in the Sun Sentinel this weekend. I want to know if that ad is legal.
Yes.
Where's your name and phone number?
It's illegal, but it doesn't say anything.
It's missing something, but I think
said the language.
it's illegal over there. It's missing all numbers, missing everything.
I have two questions. The first one, did everybody sign the attendance?
Yes.
What has to be in the ad of a broker?
Oh,
The
yeah.
license name of the brokerage firm. It's what it said in your notes if you bothered taking the time to read it.
Okay, so it's what we just.
It didn't say anything else had to be in that ad. He was right. He said there's nothing illegal there. Is there a lot that's stupid there? Or not there?
Yes.
So I didn't ask you a business question. I asked you a legal question. And legally, that's a legal ad.
Well, how would you get rid of this?
No, because that is why he's.
I didn't ask you how the public would get into you. I said, was that a legal ad? Just answer the damn question.
Yes. It's legal, but it's not effective.
Now, it's legal, but it's stupid. I need to put some information there and maybe somebody's name and a phone number in addition to the company name. So hopefully somebody would contact me. So I can sell the property or list theirs.
Stupid boy.
But you start with what the law requires, and then you build around it to meet the needs of what you want to do in that ad. Can a sales associate have an ad in their name?
No. Underneath the company that they represent, the broker.
Yes?
Yes.
No?
No.
On their name, just their name? No.
A sales associate.
Sales associate can have his name and his partner, the sales over here.
If it has the broker.
Yeah, but it has to have the
And you buy
brokers.
page 86. On the top
I think you
page.
need to move back to the first paragraph
Okay.
on 84, lines 2 to 9.
That broker's company needs to be listed.
Yes,
along
it
with
has
their
to be
name and
listed.
the
The
broker.
broker
Oh.
company
And if
has
they
to be
use their own
listed.
personal cell.
Forget what I said then.
Amazing what happens when you read it.
But even that, you can have the broker's name and the broker's phone number in page 86 over here. You can have call Alfonso.
Now, but you have to be careful here. It didn't say that a sales associate couldn't advertise. It said they couldn't advertise in their own name, which means I'd have to have this along with my name, which you see in the newspaper and other advertisements all the time.
And you don't have to put the broker's phone number.
No, the broker's name does not need to be there.
No.
The brokerage name, a licensed name of the brokerage firm, it
Yeah.
says.
Yeah, but what it says, you don't need to have the brokerage
No.
phone number.
Ben's
You
the-
can put yours.
Ben-
You want
yeah,
your
right.
number. Exactly.
So, I'm a sales associate and I want to sell apartment in Rio Grande. So I can make a flyers with a broken name and that, and my cell phone number.
Now, when you say broker's name, what do you mean by broker's name?
Broker's license.
Do you mean the person or the company?
No, company, and I think also the license of.
So,
the
so
person.
we gonna modify our discussions. Broker is Ben. Brokerage firm is a company.
Signature.
So let's, I think maybe that, we should make that separation as we talk. Because when you tell me broker, I'm not thinking ABC Realty. I'm thinking Ben. So brokerage firm, now the word firm, I mean, that's a term that we all recognize as being a business entity, not an individual person. Although, it could be called sole proprietorship. Now, if the associate is gonna put their name in the ad, what at minimum has to be there?
His license?
The firm,
No, of course, it has to be.
As far as the associate's name, what's the minimum that has to be there?
The legal name.
The last name of the associate
Yeah.
has to be there. Minimum.
Now,
I don't quite get that,
Me neither.
because I'm gonna tell you that whatever your name is registered at the department is what the marketing department back here is gonna use for your business cards and any other marketing and stuff that you do.
and it said something about the nickname,
Yeah,
so
you could put
it's
it-
like if you
Well,
have.
it's like Robert Johnson is my name, so
Okay.
Robert Bob Johnson.
Okay,
That's what you have to do the little,
so you can do the this?
yes.
Okay.
But see, that's when it's nice when you have a marketing department that what? Knows all that shit.
Yeah,
I just have to tell them, I need business cards.
yeah, okay.
And then they say, okay, here's your options.
And it has to be a name also that is attractive, because if you have a name that is too long or something like that,
But it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
If it's too long, we'll have to make the print smaller.
Do you pay-
Because we have to use the legal name.
Yeah, but for example, when I filled out in my fingerprints, I used two names
Mhm.
legally, so, she asked me.
Well,
and I-
right now, it's whatever's registered with the department is the way your license will be issued.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? You know, you register with the DVPR, which is the state. Does a broker have any obligation to the county and city?
Yes. There are business,
Business.
what we
Business
used to call
taxes?
occupational licenses, they now call them business
Taxes?
taxes. Yeah, it's the typical things and taxes that a business has to pay. It's no different than, car lot or contractor. They have to have state licenses and the local licenses to do business. Yeah. If you went out in the, where the front desk was, you would see, I think they better be up there. Okay, let's try this. Let's go back to the developer. You've got 4 models that they've given you the listings on. You go into the marketing department to try to figure out what's the best way to market it. Given the nature of the type of community is, there is a magazine that we've gotten great results from. So the marketing team suggests, let's put together a page and we'll put it in this magazine. It goes out every 6 weeks. So they put together a really nice advertising piece, showing all 4 properties and, giving the basics on each one. It's then sent over to the associate to review it. And between them and the marketing department, it's approved, Ben approves it, and it goes to the publishing company. Publishing company sets it up, and then they send a proof back for you to review the proof. Everything's cool. Sent back to the publishing company. And yesterday, the magazines hit the newsstands. Yesterday, you sold 2 of the 4 properties. My question is,
Pasha.
The answer is
No,
yes
no,
or
no,
no. I don't want to hear any opinions.
No.
So it's either yes or it's no.
No.
Yes.
How many of you say, yes, it's in violation of law? How many of you say, no, it is not in violation of law?
I didn't hear you explanation.
All right, I'll do it again.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You got a listing on 4 properties in that subdivision that we were talking about before. You went to the marketing department, you put together an ad that's going into a particular magazine. It's given to Ben, Ben signs off on it, and marketing department emails the proof to the marketing company, a publishing company, who reviews it, sends it back for final proof, and then we send it back to them, and they send it to press. Yesterday, those magazines with our ad in it hit the newsstands. Yesterday, same time that they were hitting the newsstand, 2 of the 4 lots sold. My question is, and I don't want to hear any talking, I only want to see hands. Hands are these things, not this, just in case you're tired and confused. I want to know, how many of you say that ad is illegal? How many of you say the ad's fine? Now, I have a question for you. Since about 90% of you just failed the state exam.
I know what it's.
No. This is mine. When that ad was seen by the public, was it correct?
No.
Then it's illegal!
Because somebody sold it, was false advertising, so it was to them. False advertising.
You're not listening.
That happens all the time.
The law says who comes first? The public comes first.
But it's sold on the same day.
Ah, okay.
That's
I don't give a shit. I only want to know one thing. When the public picked up that magazine and opened to your page, was the information they were staring at correct?
No.
And you told, and I told you it wasn't.
Earlier in the day.
I didn't ask you if the licensee did anything wrong. I asked you if the ad was illegal. So what do we, so,
It's too appropriate.
so what do we need to do? Fix it.
Fix it, just put it to proper extent.
How would we fix it? It doesn't run, it runs 6 weeks. How do we fix it? We make sure that everybody in the company who might pick up the phone
Say so.
and get an inquiry would immediately tell them what?
That we
That
already
2
sold
of the
it.
units have already sold, so you don't get charged with bait and switch.
So you have to do is.
Now, if it was a Sun Signal ad, we could do what? We can pull that in a day or 2. Or go in and have it fixed and keep running it. Yes, ma'am.
You also told us that it's a sale is not a sale until it goes to contract and it closes, so you have backup. So if you sold 2, they're not sold until they're closed. So if someone calls on those 2, they can.
Are those 2 available?
Backup, yeah.
Are they available? Did I say they were available?
No.
Then you changed my question. Do you know what happens when you change the question? You change the answer.
Were they sold?
That was just an example.
For purposes of answering that question, yes.
Would it, Dale, presume?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's assume it had just gone to contract and that's all it done. Was that ad still current?
No, you need to disclose.
No. I'm communicating with.
I would say that you could say it's.
Yes or no? Yes, it's okay, still okay, or no, it's illegal.
Yes.
I'm not going to answer. He's not like this, so I'm not going to answer.
Take the
Okay,
fifth.
no problem. You'll be here for a long time.
Dale, since.
No, I didn't answer my question.
Well, yeah, actually.
What's the question?
The question was, they said, well, it couldn't be sold yet. and you told me if it wasn't sold, it wasn't sold. So I backed off and said, okay, it went under contract yesterday.
So it's not sold yet.
No,
So,
but my question is the information in that ad still correct?
No.
yeah.
Then it's illegal.
It's illegal.
No, it's not.
Did it say that two of them were under contract when it went to press?
No.
Okay, then it's changed, and therefore it's not current, and therefore it's illegal. But you're not getting the message. All you gotta do is fix it. The whole purpose of that is to make sure what? That when you do your marketing and advertising, when it becomes out of date, that you understand as the associate, as the broker, we need to fix it. Whatever that entails. It may be simply making sure that whoever answers the phones on 4, if they got a call on that, to let them know that those two properties are under contract. Because if you don't do that, and you make them think that the 2-4 properties are still available, and you know what's gonna happen is the very one they like is the one that's under contract. Yes.
I wanna know this, then they send out postcards, big postcards, where this is available, this is available. And it just as a hypothetical, I call and it's sold. So is that false advertising?
Yes.
Oh my God.
But then that's correct.
But it's easy to correct it.
Yeah, because they can answer the phone.
In that when you make sure that everybody knows that when they pick up the phone and they ask about it, you immediately tell them that 2 of them are under contract, but the other 2 are still available.
So then that makes it legal.
So it's not it wasn't that you as the licensee did anything wrong. It's that what the public saw, through no fault of your own and nothing you can really do about it, other than not sell them, and that kind of doesn't work.
But this happened a lot, where when you call for private citizen under contract. So that means false advertising.
No, not necessarily.
Uh,
Not necessarily.
That's why, in the signs in the house for sale, they put a sign there, contract pending, so they have to do it. They have to inform the public that the house has a contract.
You know why? You know why I do that?
No.
So that you'll list with me because I sell houses.
That sign is legal, then.
You know, I don't-
That's when you put under contract, you're doing that for one reason.
Yes.
So that other people in that community see that you list homes and sell them.
What about MLS?
Yeah.
What about MLS?
What about it?
Okay, so say you get a contract, but you need time to put a contract in. So what do you do?
What do you mean you need time? I'm not following you.
All right, so say you write up an offer on a house.
Oh, okay, you're the selling agent.
Yeah,
Okay.
so then, say it's in the MLS, and you waited a day to put it in contract. So that day before it just shows that it's for sale. It's okay, right? You have to, you can't do it
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
The
You have to put
point
a
is,
disclaimer.
people, if someone calls and you know that it's under contract, you just haven't got it changed in the MLS yet because it happened yesterday, and you're busy trying to, make sure you tie all the loose ends up,
Yeah, then you just tell them.
you just tell them.
I'm writing up an offer.
The whole point of that question is that we have to make sure that the marketing that we do is up to date. If it's not, we need to take whatever measures make sense in the situation to make sure the public knows that property's not available. Now, if it's the magazine thing, we can't pull that, why? Unless you want to drive around the country stealing magazines. So you stop violation of one law and violate a different one.
Can you put a disclaimer on the advertising?
Yeah,
That'll work.
sure. Doesn't change anything I've said for the last half an hour. No.
Why?
Because the law says so.
You still, when you pick up that phone,
You still have to say
you still have to say it.
What is the
Yes.
report?
Okay, I understand exactly what you said. This is my question. For the test, if they say that exact thing that you have.
You're gonna answer it exactly like I told you to.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, flip it over as a broker and doing marketing and stuff like that, knowing that that's a possibility. The marketing department probably wouldn't put more, knowing that there's a possibility of it's being sold before.
Wrong. I'm gonna put all four there
Oh.
and hope I sell them
Fast.
Before.
the same day, before the ad even goes in. And so then I can proudly tell anybody that calls on it, I sold them yesterday.
Okay.
Or they went under contract yesterday, whatever floats your boat. So there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing other than,
See, but you were not protecting the public when I answered that question.
Okay.
You were protecting yourself. And you seem to forget who you are. That poses a problem. I don't make these questions up. Where I get them from, it's none of your business. But that's a concept question. All these situation questions are concept questions to see if you understand the concept of this idea of advertising and how I have to do it and what happens if, thank God, it sells or goes under contract, how do I handle that? I mean, it's not really that hard if you think about it per se. They just, see, this business has been nasty for bait and switch. They didn't bother telling them those two were available, and they sucked them in on the other two. Sounds good for business, but somehow they felt that business practice was not necessarily fair to the public. So you have to understand that's the underlying current behind this. So it's not about you, it's not about you doing something illegal. It's about what you're doing with misleading the public. So I have to take care of it as quickly as I can. What method that'll be, it depends what it is. If it's a Sun Sentinel ad, we can go in and do what? Get a hold of our rep, get them in there, get it changed, and put it right back up. But I use the magazine example because it's not something you can take care of now. It's going to take time. You can take care of it now. When they call, they text or email, you just simply make them clear that these two are under contract, but the other two are still available. Hurry, they're going fast. Okay.
Verbal is your
I
addendum
think
to
we'll
your
pull the
ad.
plug here.
Dell,
I'm sorry, hang on a second. Do me a favor, after class in the morning, can you make sure you put your chairs in? Thank you. Let me come back there, I won't.